pelvis bridge. Yeah, it's very known. It's not a yeah.
So right here.
No, you just yeah. You bring your feet a little more together, so your heels in one line with your sits bone, right? And then you just observe how the relationship from your heels to your sits bone and your knee in relationship to each other. And then you just take an inhalation, exhale. You soften your organs in and your hip bones here, right? Think of moving away from your femur bone, yeah? And your lumbar spine is just melting. Don't press it down, just let it melting so you create more space and instead pushing down. Then think how your sits bone moving in the skin of your thigh muscle, yeah, and then you roll slowly up. Roll slowly from the pelvis towards me and feel how your sits bone reaching towards your knees and over your knees. Hold that for me. Now can you feel what happened to your legs? And the moment when you come up, you pushed it out, so you're overworking that, yeah? Can come down. Let's do this once more with me, yeah? So when you come up, can you think a little more, your hip bones is hugging each other. Can you feel how your femur bone already falling in a different place, yeah? And then keep this awareness that the hip bones coming together, and your hip bones now just moving back. And you roll your sits bone in your thigh muscle and roll slowly up, but keep the awareness coming together. Then feel your feet. Feel feet rooting down in the floor. Keep your legs, your hip bones connected. Keep your hip bones connected. And then I want you to feel how your knees reaching over your toes. Now take an inhalation here. Now let each vertebra melting down slowly. Now feel a little your big toes, and then have a little, think you have a magnet between your knees. Magnet, yes, yeah, that was great. And then I would like to talk actually a little bit about the space.
Okay.
Because I also think we are living in a time where time and space, special space, the awareness of space get lost.
The external spatial awareness, you mean?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. How we respect each other's space.
Yes.
And
well, in New York City.
yeah, but you can be so close. I can be totally sitting next to you, legs leg on leg, shoulder on shoulder, but there's still this respect in between because we are aware.
Yes.
And I think what got a little lost is the awareness, but what we can bring back is through the movement, bring them people back to more awareness.
Well, you know, Apollonia, I talk about this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There are reasons why people deliberately don't want to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
If I wake up in the country,
yeah,
and I hear the crickets, and I hear maybe the wind or the river going by, and I smell that sweet smell, even in the fall when you have a certain smell because the leaves are breaking down, it's kind of like...
That's true.
But in the city, I used to live in Chelsea, and I would wake up and have to go to work and walk towards 14th Street, and the smell was so awful. I don't know what it was that was out there, but the last thing I wanted to do was deepen my awareness of it. And in the morning I would have to get up. There would be the dregs of what was still out there the night before, and you would see people that I expect to see in the zombie apocalypse. And they would, and I'm a man walking through. I can only imagine what it would be like for a woman, because you know how you're being, you know, all the time. And so people are closing on purpose because our environment is not necessarily palatable. It's not necessarily fragrant. It's not necessarily...
That's true, but...
nice. I'm not telling you that we need... I'm saying that that's the causes for it. I understand that it is very important to remain aware, because the consequences of not remaining aware, to me, outweigh the effects of being aware and it being unpleasant. Because not knowing, to me, is the worst. Not having an environmental awareness means that things can happen to you because you're not paying attention.
Right.
You can trip, you can fall, you can be hit, etc., etc. Not having an internal awareness means that we can let things go way too long past the point at which they could have been dealt with quite easily. Or just making adjustments, right? If I'm sitting here now, then I may have a little stiffness in the line of my posture or something. But if I make an adjustment, maybe it goes away. But if I don't at least even have the alignment or the idea of a vertical alignment or where I am in space, I can't do these things.
That's true, but what you mentioned when your experience walking on the street, you've been holding your mind like this, and if you keep on holding every time daily, but that way, that actually creates a posture in you.
It creates a posture.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
And that actually shows up then. Your shoulder forward, your head is forward, or whatever, and then people coming, okay, and you say, okay, I want to have this fixed, or I want to have work on that. But seeing all that behind is for me what I mentioned before. I see you with your story, with your life.
Sure.
So where I start actually to bring this in, maybe through a word, how I move you through this exercise.
Okay.
You know?
So you use your awareness of observing the person to be able to help them with their story.
Right.
Because you're observing their story and you're trying to bring them to a positive story.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can change the story, you know?
You know, as what we do, it's really hard. I'm waiting online in the bank and I get to the teller and I'm looking at the teller and this woman, she probably has been working there for over 20 years or something. Her posture, she was so curved forward because she's so used to working with people in the window. I'm telling you, it was as if her entire body were just a shell coming forward that she couldn't get out of. And I wanted to say to her, I can help you. And I mean, I remember years ago when the power walking people first came out. And you'd see people, you know, and I'm like, what is the matter with them? You know, I'm like, what is the matter with them? And I'd be like, well, first of all, why don't you just run and get it over with? You know, that was always my thing. I was like, okay, maybe they can't run. There's something wrong with them, that they're just pre-running stage. But I get it now because we're so sedentary because the modern way is making it easier. Right. And I'm into technology. I would be the first to say I enjoy technology. I do not want it to go back to the time when we could not turn on a light and it comes on and all the other things. I mean, we're able to have this communication because of technology, but I just think that we have to be very careful with how it impacts us. We have to be very careful with also not throwing away the older ways and the older wisdom and trying to build our society in a way in which it still is healthy for humans. That when we have this technology, we need to think about it, how it should be implemented in society so that it doesn't get in the way of us still being able to be human. Right. We need to walk. We need to lift. We need to lower. We need to carry. We need to push. We need to pull. We need to rotate. We need to have movement in our lives beyond
sitting.
It's very important because a lot of the things that we do, as you know, as exercise professionals, as movers, as teachers, is we make up therapies to try to combat the things that society is doing.
Right.
Feet. I talk about feet all the time. People come to me with, you know, all kinds of skeletal issues, and I'm like, well, it's your feet is the issue. I mean, it's really because you're walking on concrete is the bottom line. I mean, that is, for a lot of people, the reason why they have musculoskeletal problems. And I'm like, you gotta have to adapt some strategies. You know, I have people, one tip, walk on uneven surfaces as much as possible. If you have a park near you, if you have a beach near you, if you have a cracked sidewalk, try not to always walk on the smooth stuff. Walk on the uneven surfaces so your nervous system is challenged, So the feet are challenged, so the lower leg is challenged so that you will not atrophy to the point where you start to have these problems. And of course, choose your footwear very carefully. And the ladies, I don't know what you were wearing today because I didn't get a chance to see it yet on the foot. But
actually, because I had foot problems and I started 2 months ago, I had a lot of tingling in my foot. And I went back to my country for 3 weeks and I had a chance to go to the mountains. And that was great. I was walking 6 hours. It was really, because I didn't choose the best, but it was really giving me great support.
Sure.
But I had no problem. It feels like all that what I experienced before, and I came back experiencing now, came back. But in these 3 days, I walked really in 6 hours. There was nothing. My feet were so healthy.
Yeah. It's the surface. The feet are a challenge just because everything is flat all the time.
Yeah.
Depending on the footwear that you have, you may be creating more of a problem because too much support is just as bad as not having enough support because you're not giving the muscles any challenge at all.
Yeah.
The problem right now, is that some people have such problems with the weakness. They've gotten to the point where it's so weak that it really can't even support itself on its own. And that's really a bad place to be in because then you have to be really creative on how to build it back up again. And in some cases, unfortunately, I don't know what can be done. But for the majority of people, I think if you're intelligent about your footwear, wearing footwear that has a decent support but not too much support.
Right.
I run around a lot of times in these sports sandals and stuff. Even in the winter, I put on wool socks and things because it really keeps, my ankles have to stay strong and my feet have to, my toes get to work and what have you. But, it's a challenge, but thank goodness we have you doing the things that you're doing, to help people. So is there any tips that you'd like to give to people before we sign off? Do you have some words of wisdom from Mr.
I would say, when you walk out or do exercise, find the pleasure in the movement.
Finding
the pleasure in the movement.
The pleasure in the movement.
Find the space in the movement. Experience the space.
Okay.
Not just moving the hands or the leg from A to B but what is in between? What happens in between? What happens in between can nourish you on so many different levels.
I see.
And change actually seeing the world also. Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I hope you'll show us a little movement in a moment, and I really appreciate you doing the show.
Thank you. Thanks, it was really fun to talk to you. Right, that's what I want to do with you. Just lifting your arms up. That's a simple movement we do every day, right? And I want to invite you, maybe face that way, Can you just bring your arms from the side up towards the ceiling? Just lifting your arms up. Both arms, Take your both arms, So, be aware what happened to your shoulder when you did that. And bring it down again. What I can feel when I put my hands on it, and that you walked a lot with your upper traps, and your lumbar spine was collapsing a little forward, that changed right away your posture down in your feet. So what I want to invite you, bring your arms again out and feel the space when you reach out in space with your hand. Just hold on that. Now experience this space. And then in this moment I want you just feel how your scapula reaching to your elbow and your elbow reaching to your fingers. And then when I ask you lifting your arms up, think more like a tree. The roots is down between your scapula reaching down in your sacrum, down in your feet. And let the movement from inside reaching up and from outside releasing down. Hold it, stay here and release your scapula, release your scapula, release your scapula.
So it's all about awareness. And once you begin to cultivate that subtle awareness in terms of now you're really asking me to focus on hip, on lower back, and really be aware of the subtleties of what's going on there. Bring my mind there and be connected to what's happening.
That's it. Movement is energy. And sometimes also when I teach, because I do Shiatsu, I can do lifting the leg, think of your hamstring elongated, or I can feel from your sits bone reaching an energy up to your toes, where you open up actually the bladder meridian. Mm-hmm. And then I first actually doing the movement behind them, bring the energy back in your sits bone. Mm-hmm. So you're bringing the strength back, and you're actually you're tonifying your bladder meridian again. It's running through your hamstring, So what is actually Pilates is doing? It's opening and Gyrotonic open continuously the energy lines in your body. Mm-hmm. You bring it in, that strengthens you, and you open up. But you have to find this place, like almost a tube, where it's give a direction in space. You get a direction in space, and that's where the focus is also.
Well, it's funny because even when I used to study Tai Chi and those movements and how when you're doing those movements and you're breathing and you're pushing, and it's almost like you're bringing this. There's something powerful to these, really understanding these subtle movements and the energy, the feel between me and you, and it takes. I do believe it takes cultivation. You have to keep practicing it to cultivate it, to get more, more refined in it or more developed in it. Then, but I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I want to tell you one experience I had the other day in the subway. I was sitting next to a man, and we were sitting like this. And I had this moment, stress, going from one place to another. And sometimes when I start, there's my moment where I just rest deeply. Mm-hmm. And I just closed my eyes, and I let myself falling in the place of whatever you can call it. Is it God? Is it love? Mm-hmm. Is it life? Is it like this resting place? And suddenly, I opened my eyes. I looked to my neighbor, and in this moment he looked at me, and we smiled and we understood. You can see we understood. Mm-hmm. So this is in this quietness, we dropped in the same time. There was or I bowled him or he bowled me, but we were there both. We were sitting there, we looked, we didn't talk. I got off, next stop, I looked at him, I said goodbye, and he said goodbye and smiled. And I was thinking this moment was like the exchange of energy, what you're talking, there's a continuously, you move or just to sit and you share, you drop in this moment. Mm. But this was such, this made my day.